Okay. For those who are watching the replay, I am doing a blogging 101. This is a very simplified version of an overview of blogging, I'll put it that way. But I am going to give a couple of minutes for people to get on and get settled before I hop in. For those who are watching live, for those who are catching the replay, just kind of bear with me. I would play some music, but I am on Facebook Live, and Facebook does not allow music on, Facebook Live does not allow music on their live streams unless you own it. So I'm not an artist, I'm not a musician, so I have no music to occupy time. Hey, Brandy. So I'm just going to give probably another minute to get people on before I begin. But the replay will stay up. The replay will stay up. Okay, so I know there's like no Grey's Anatomy or Scandal or anything like that tonight. So I'm hoping that people will be able to watch live. If not, the replay will still be up in the Facebook group and on Instagram, at least for 24 hours on Instagram. Yeah, I'll give a few more seconds. I'll start in a little bit. I did have some questions that were asked beforehand, so I really made those questions the bulk of what I will be sharing with you tonight to make sure I answer those questions, but to also give you a little bit more information about blogging. So I am going to go ahead and get started, and we'll go from there. My name is Vernetta Arfrini, and I am a journaling expert. I am also the organizer of the Houston African American Bloggers Association. I am a journaling expert at The Truth Confidant. I teach stressed individuals to claim their peace. Self-guided journals, specialized courses, and events are some of the tools that we use. I do this because depression and stress kept me in a miserable state, and I was unable to experience true peace. Blogging is a form of journaling, and so I'm going to be talking about blogging tonight because actually I started blogging in 2009 as a way for me to vent about my teaching job at the time. So for me, I did not start blogging as a business. Excuse me, as a business. I did not start it as a way to make money. I started blogging as a way to vent, and then it kind of grew from there. So most of you who are watching want to start blogging as a way to attract customers, clients, as a way to, hold on, sorry, trying to move my phone. You want to start blogging as a way to really get people to notice you for whatever your niche or your topic is, correct? Okay. Hold on. Press something. There we go. Okay. Okay, so I am here to give you some tips on getting started with blogging. I have lots of notes, so I will be looking at my notes to make sure that I go through everything. And I am trying to also make sure I comment as well. Hold on one second. Let me. Okay, so let's get started. Blogging is a great tool and a strategy. However, A lot of people abuse the power of blogging, and it really dilutes your business and your brand when you use it in a very ineffective way. So I'm going to give you 3 tips. Is it 3? Yes, 3. 3 to really kind of help you get started with it so that you have a better understanding of how to incorporate blogging into your business or as a blogger if that's what you choose. Okay. Number 1, and this is not a tip, but this is something that you have to do if you want to add blogging as a strategy for your business. You have to be committed and dedicated to blogging. I'm going to share more throughout, but you have to be committed to actually blogging, and I'm going to go over the different types of blogging, and you have to be dedicated to consistency. Now, you get to choose your consistency, but you have to make sure that you are consistent. There are times I'm not consistent, so I changed how I put out content. That way it wasn't putting pressure on me to produce daily or weekly, but at the same time I'm giving quality, and I'll talk about that later on. Okay. Blogging also allows you to bring your personality into your business or your brand. It allows you to let people get to know you as opposed to get an entity, a faceless entity. You want to be able to have people connect with your business or your brand in a way where it becomes part of their life that they have to have in some form or fashion. Okay, that's what you're trying to do. What I'm sharing here will be very basic, but sometimes basic and simple actually are more productive for us than complicated or over-the-top type of activities that we need to do. In order to take what I share with you and maximize its effectiveness, you may want to look for other ways to extend what I'm going to teach you tonight, and I will share more about that at the end. Yes, blogging does help people get to know you, and also blogging helps you get to know you. Sometimes we're not able to share about our business or about our brand because we're not able to share, we're not able to communicate because we haven't developed that part of ourselves yet. Communication is very hard for a lot of people, to communicate with others and to communicate with yourself. Blogging helps you communicate with others about what you're doing. So even in the beginning, when no one is reading, no one is paying attention, or you're doing live streams and no one's on, you still get the practice of blogging. And that practice, being committed to the act and then being dedicated to whatever type of consistency you decided, will help you get to the voice that connects and attracts the customers and the clients that you want to work with. Okay, so let's start with the first tip that I have for you. Blogging can be written, video, or audio. So blogging is not just writing words on a paper or words on a screen. That's written blogging. Then you have video blogging, which we call vlogging. And then you have audio blogging, which we call podcasting. So there are 3 types of blogging. Blogging is just the word that everyone knows because it's been around the longest. Vlogging really didn't come into play until YouTube came out in like what, 2004, 6, whenever YouTube came out. I think it was 2006. And audio has been around probably that long, but it's really kind of got more popular around 2014, 2015. So there are 3 types of blogging. First, you need to commit to one of those types of blogging. I would not say commit to all 3 at the same time because you're creating content. And I'm going to talk about creating content. it would be very hard for you to create content for 3 different types of platforms. So you want to start with one. I started with written blogging. Then I moved to video blogging. I did do YouTube for a while. Then I moved to audio blogging. So I have gone with the evolution, and I'm trying to do live stream, but that's a totally different segment. But live stream is part of video blogging. So I guess you could say I came back to video blogging. But I have tried all 3, and I still have a written blog and I still have an audio blog. I just don't do video blogging consistently. I do it for certain things like this, okay? Now, some people wanted to know, where can you host your blog? Okay, so if you have a written blog, you can host it for free on places like WordPress or Blogger. Or you can buy your domain and go on WordPress, Blogger, Wix, any of those sites. That means you buy your domain and then you pay for hosting. You can either pay every month or pay monthly, or you can pay yearly, or you can buy a few years at a time. I own my domains and I buy years at a time. I think 2 or 3 years at a time. You can also use LinkedIn. You can use Medium. You can use any of those types of sites where they're looking for aggregated content, where they're looking for writers. They may not pay you, but they have a large platform. Huffington Post. They don't really pay their bloggers, but the Huffington Post, you can use that as your site to blog. But you do have to have an audience before you go to that type of place. Okay. For video, it can be on YouTube, Facebook Live, Instagram Live, Periscope. Now, you do not own any of those platforms. Okay, so you do have to be careful with video blogging, because all video blogging is on a free platform. So you have to be careful, because they can take you down at any time. What I will suggest is that you take your video from whichever platform you're using and download a hard copy of your video to an external hard drive. Let me pull that up so you can see. This is an external hard drive. It's something you can plug into your computer or your laptop that has your files. I really suggest, because every YouTube video I've ever made is on this external hard drive. So even if YouTube takes down my entire YouTube channel, I still have hard copies of my videos, so I can start a new channel if I need to. Video blogging is the only platform that you can't host on your own. If you do decide to natively upload your videos to like WordPress or Blogger, and you own WordPress or Blogger, you will have to pay more for your hosting because of the bandwidth. That's one thing to consider if you want to try to host your own video blogs. And then you have, for your audio blogs, you can go to Libsyn. You can go to SoundCloud, Podbean. There are a lot of different places you can host. Now, the thing with the audio is you're paying. You will be paying for it monthly. So I'm with Libsyn, and I pay the lowest price because I don't upload new audios every single week. I do my audio by seasons. So I will upgrade when I'm uploading, and then once I get through uploading all of my episodes, I then go back down to the lowest price. That way I still have my hosting, but I'm not also breaking my bank. That's the tip that I share with you when it comes to audio. You don't have to pay $25 a month if you're not uploading new audio every single week. You can go down to like the $7 a month and pay that. And then when you upload audios, then you just upgrade, pay the difference, and then go back down, and then the difference will be moved to the next month. Little tip that I learned. Okay, so these are the most common ways to blog. We have written blog, we have video blog, and we have audio blog. Those are the types of blogging that you can utilize. Now, the site depends on the type of blogging you want to do. It depends on your tech level, and it depends on how much you want to invest in blogging. Now, if you're just wanting to dabble and see what it's about and you like to write, get a WordPress.com or a Blogger.com domain. Those are free. If you want to do video blogs, I would say start with Instagram, because these videos leave after 24 hours. So even if you thought it was horrible, no one's going to see it after 24 hours. But you do want to save your video so that you can use it and repurpose it for later. If you're on audio, I would say to probably have an audience before you put some out there. That's going to be a little bit harder to get an audience. Even though podcasting is growing, there's still not a lot of people who listen. So you want to try to have an audience before you put out your first episode. Okay, so that was tip number 1. That is choosing your platform, choosing your type of blogging, and then deciding what you're going to be committed to. Number 2, after you choose your type of blogging and your platform, you have to decide how often you're going to post. I get this question all the time. Do I post daily? Do I post weekly? How often do I post? It depends on your audience. I cannot tell you to post daily if your audience only wants to read something or listen to something weekly. You have to know your audience. For me, I don't post weekly on my written blog. I post when I feel like it. My audience reads it then, because on social media, I'm giving other things to get them to the site. On my audio blog, my podcast, I do by seasons. So I get my audience prepared from this date to this date. I will be releasing new episodes. They get those new episodes and they're fine. But my audience is different from your audience. If you're in fashion or beauty, your audience may want a little bit more. They may want you to go deeper into mascara or foundations. Whatever your audience is looking for, they will tell you, and I'm going to tell you how to find out. Let's see. Now, for written blogs, the number of times to post depends on your niche, your topic, and your readers. Number 1, if your niche, like for me, my niche is journaling. No one's going to want to read about journaling every single day. It's not going to happen. I know that. Okay? Okay? It's not going to happen. But if you have like a business about financial services, or you write about marketing, or you write about family events, like you're a lifestyle blogger, you can probably blog every single day. You can probably blog, which is video blogging, every single day. Maybe weekly for podcasting. Now, there are some who do daily, but that is a lot of work. I am telling you, it is a lot of work to do an audio blog because you have to edit. Yeah, there's stuff to do with it. But anyway, okay, so I will come back to that question in a second, Brandy, because I don't want to lose my train of thought. So when you are deciding how much content you're going to create, you first want to pay attention to your audience. There are some people who say to survey your audience. I say survey your audience, but don't take their word literally, because sometimes your audience doesn't know what they want until you give it to them. I wrote a lot about how business really works. They weren't really reading it. But guess what? They're listening to the podcast, which is about the same thing that I wrote about. So your audience may consume the content that you're writing about differently. They didn't want to read it, but they want to listen to it. Okay, so to answer the question, if you're launching a podcast on September 11th, how many followers do you suggest a person or a company has? I would suggest you have at least 10 people who are willing to share. So when you have an audience on a podcast, you really want people who are willing to share more than you want listeners. Because a lot of African American people do not really listen to podcasts. As much as we see things being posted on Twitter and being posted on Instagram, we don't really consume audio blogs, podcasts as much as other ethnicities. So you want to try to get people who are already engaged with your business or your brand, so that when you come out, they will share. They will go ahead and share. I have a phone call coming in, and I don't want to push reject because I don't want the video to mess up. So I hope they hang up real soon. But when it comes to a podcast, you want to first have people who are willing to share. They are going to listen first, and then they're going to share with their audience, so that makes it easier. Another thing to do is if you do have a podcast, is to start telling people beforehand, hey, such and such is coming. You don't want to put it way out because people forget. You do want to probably start maybe 6 weeks to 2 months in advance, just letting people know. Not spamming your social media, but just putting it out there in a way for people to know that you have a podcast coming out. Never knew where to find who. Oh, people who would share, those are the people who are on Facebook. A lot of the people who share my podcast were people on Facebook who never really interacted with me, but for some reason they took to my podcast and they shared. So people who are willing to share are already they're already connected to you. They may not like the content that you are putting out on that platform. They may be looking for another platform for you to put out that content. Okay, let me go back to my notes to make sure. Okay, so if your audience wants daily content, then you need to produce daily content. That means you really have to be able to produce content that does not suck, is not boring, that will catch their attention, and is something that they want. Okay? No one wants to go to your blog and you're saying the same thing over and over in a different way. They will leave. You have to, if you're going to do daily, you have to create something related to your niche, but it needs to be a little different every single day. You do want quality over quantity. My suggestion is, if you have not started consistently blogging, to start with 1 post a week. Or if you're on video blogging, 1 video a week. Choose a day and choose the time. I'm going to put my written blog out every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Every Tuesday at 8 a.m. your blog needs to be out so that people know to expect it. If you're doing a video, like I do live stream on Facebook every Friday at noon now. So every Friday at noon, I am on the Houston African American Bloggers Association page doing a live stream. That's my consistency. That's my 1 day a week. Start there. You will be able to get more content because people are going to make comments and people are going to ask questions. Then you take your pen and you write down what they're asking you. That's how you get more content to write. And that's how you can attract more people, because now you're answering their questions. Even though people are asking me questions now, if I wanted to do this as a regular thing, I would then create content to only explain the launch of a podcast. How to attract people to your podcast would be a different one. That's what you do when people are asking questions and comments. Those, you answer it then, but then you can make that a whole nother episode for your live stream, your podcast, or write out another blog explaining it. Okay, now for me personally, I like to do series so I can produce quality over quantity. July is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. So every July, I have a series on mental health in the African American community. So once a week, I am going to release a new written blog related to mental health in the African American community. That is a series I would do. For April, is Stress Awareness Month. Every week, I am releasing a new written blog related to stress. Also, in those 2 months, because they pertain to my niche, I release new podcast episodes. So people know they're going to have new podcast episodes every April and every July. If I choose another month to do a different season, that's okay. But people are going to know every April, every July to expect a new season of my podcast. That's what you have to get people conditioned to. So outside of those 2 months, I tell people April and July are my podcast months. April and July are my podcast months. You can expect something from me in April and July. I'm not going to say it every day, but I put it out there so people know April and July are my podcast months. That way they know when new seasons are coming out of my podcast. Now, when you do a series, depending on how many pieces of content you wrote, will determine how many days you're going to do it. So for like April, I did Spring Out of Stress. So I did 30 days on Instagram. So I had to write 30 pieces of content that I was going to say on Instagram. Then I had written blog posts. So that was weekly. I had audio posts, which was my podcast, which was weekly. Then I had live streams on Facebook. Every single one of the things I just mentioned is a different piece of content that I wrote, but it was all related to Spring Out of Stress. So when you do a series, it does help you be able to break down your pieces of content so that you can dive deeper and you won't feel stressed trying to think of different things to create. So if I'm only talking about stress for 30 days, okay, I can come up with 30 tips that I can do 1-minute videos on. I can then take some of those tips and create 4 written posts. Then I can take 4 more of those tips or 5 more of those tips and do a podcast episode for those. So you can then start taking your content and putting it in other places. For your live stream, you may take 1 or 2. I took 1 or 2 and I spoke about those because those were more important, in my opinion, when it was related to stress. How you create content is based on your audience, number 1, but also, is it going to be quality? If you're just trying to put content out there because you want readers, that's not going to attract readers. Or you want viewers or listeners, that's not going to attract them. Sometimes the first post they read from you, the first video they watch from you, the first audio they listen from you, if they don't like it, they're not coming back. So you want to make sure your quality is good in every single piece of content you put out. I have deleted videos. I've deleted a whole YouTube channel. I have deleted written blog posts because it wasn't good quality. It wasn't good quality, and I did not want that out there. It's okay for you to delete them because you want quality. Because what if that's the first piece of content someone comes across that's yours, and then they don't like it and they don't come back? Okay, so you have to think about that. Okay, only your audience can determine how often you post. Now, to get the also, a series allows people who are authors, who have books, to really get people into the book before it comes out. Yes, first impressions. So if you have a book, you may not want to post every single day, but you may want to post weekly, and you may want to post one thing here, one thing there from your book. You don't want to give too much of your book because then people won't have a reason to buy it. But you want to give enough that draws them in. Oh, I want to know more about this character. I may need to buy this book. Or I want to know what happens at the end of this story. I need to buy this book. So you want to entice them, but you don't want to give them the entire scope of your book. Okay? I have a lot of notes, but I want to make sure that I am giving you enough information, but keeping it simple at the same time. We're still on 2 because content is very important. Content is king. Marketing is the queen, and I'm not even going to touch on marketing your blog at all because that's a totally different live stream. But I do want to make sure that you understand what you need to do to create the content to get people interested. Now, for video content, the best 2 options are daily or weekly. If you can't think of quality content to say on a live stream every single day, don't do it. Unless you are doing a series, then you have an end point. When you have an end to your series, it's okay to do daily. I did 30 days straight for Spring Out of Stress, but I wrote out the content for every single day. That way I knew what I was going to say every single day. If you cannot do daily, I would suggest weekly. That gives you 6 days to write something out and have something to say. Same time, same day, every week if you're doing weekly. If you're doing daily, same time. That's the consistency. People need to know that every Tuesday at 7 p.m., they're going to see your video being uploaded to YouTube or your live stream on Instagram or Facebook or Periscope. They need to know so that they can put it on their calendar. That's what you want when it comes to video and audio. You want people to know when stuff is coming out so they put it on their calendar and can expect it. Okay. Plus, not only do you have to create content, but you also have to present an image. So when you're doing video, you cannot be in your pajama top. You cannot have your head looking any kind of way. You are your brand, so you have to look presentable, at least presentable. For me, in public, people know I wear dresses. So if you see me at a conference, you see me at an event, you see me somewhere, I'm wearing a dress. I'm not wearing a dress here, but it looks like I am, so I just told you that. But I still made sure that I was presentable on video, because if I came on here and I didn't have my my little fro combed out and I had on some raggedy looking shirt, that would not be a good image for me to have. You would not associate me with someone who knows what I'm talking about because it may look like I just rolled out of bed. So when you have video content, you do have to also think about presentation. Presentation is key because some people will not listen to you if you look like a ragamuffin. They just won't. So you have to think about that. When I do video, I actually pick out my outfits so that I look presentable. Audio. Audio to me is the easiest. You can be in your pajamas for audio. Nobody's going to know, okay? Because you're recording voice. You can use, when I first started podcasting, I used freeconferencing.com. I got on my phone and I recorded my audio. I downloaded the MP3 and I uploaded it to Libsyn and I was done. Now I have like a nice little headset with a microphone and I use Audacity to edit it. I've kind of grown high tech since I've started. I'm getting ready to do like season 5 of my podcast. So I've upgraded, but there's not a lot of things that I have to do as far as presenting myself. Now I still have to write out my content. I do write out my content of what I'm going to speak about on my podcast. But I also have to make cover photos for the cover art and graphics and all of that stuff. That's all part of marketing, which I really won't have time to get into today. I'll answer questions if you have those about that. But audio, you speak, record, edit, publish. It can really be done seriously and probably from start to finish, 90 minutes for me. 90 minutes for me to do everything with audio. For a blog post, I write it, I leave it, I come back, I edit it, I leave it, I come back, and I edit it. I am a writing teacher, so I want to make sure my grammar is good, my spelling is right, and it does not look like a third grader did it. So I'm very cautious about my written work because I teach writing. For video, I need to make sure that the content that I have is presentable, but I also need to know about what I'm going to say beforehand because I can't keep looking over at my notes. Now, I do look at my notes so that I know what I need to share with you, but I need to be able to look you somewhat in the eye. So I need to be able to look at the video as I'm speaking. So you have to take those things into consideration. Okay. For the average for written, I would say 300 to 700 words. If you go over 700 words, you're getting into novel territory, and unless you have an audience who are readers, you don't want to put that much content on there. You may want to break it up into more than one post. If you have video, I would say 30 minutes to an hour is good. If you have audio, 30 minutes to an hour is average. A lot of people like 15 minutes or less podcast episodes, and there's a growing number of people who like over an hour. So less than 15 minutes and an hour plus are like growing trends. However, if you know your audience for audio drives to work, then 30 minutes to an hour, that's commute time. That's why it's average, it's commute time. If you have video, 30 minutes to an hour, that's how much time people watch a TV show. For writing, most people will not read more than 700 words in one sitting. So that's why 300 to 700 is for written. Okay, again, your audience, I keep saying this because I want you to understand, your audience will dictate how long something is, how much they will consume, how long they will sit and watch, how long they will listen. Your audience will dictate that. Now, here's how you will find out how your audience likes to consume their information. They will write it on Facebook. They will write it on Twitter. They will comment on Instagram. Read those. Pay attention to that. If, like I did a podcast interview for the Introvert Entrepreneur last week, and it was about 30 minutes. The whole show was about 30 minutes. A lot of people said they liked that. These are people who don't really listen to my podcast, so they liked 30 minutes. My podcast is closer to an hour. So I know if they like what I was saying over there for that 30 minutes, they may tune in for the whole hour for my podcast, the whole 45 minutes to an hour to my podcast because they liked the content that I was sharing on that. That's another way to attract people to your podcast is to, oh, thank you. You're welcome. Another way is to go on other people's podcasts and attract them to yours. I had a lot of people tune in to my podcast after I was on Entrepreneur on Fire. I have a lot of people who are now reaching out to me after being on the Introvert Entrepreneur. So if you can get on a bigger podcast in your niche, they will attract people to you because they will say, hey, Vernetta's kind of cool. Why don't you go check out her podcast? Why don't you go tune in? That is another way to help people get to your podcast is by being a guest on another one. Twitter chats is another great way to get people to know that you have a podcast. Find podcast chats on Twitter or use certain hashtags like Pods in Color and Pod In. Those are for African American podcasters, started by Pods in Color. That's the name of the site. She's probably the #1 directory for African American podcasters. I look at my stats on my WordPress. I get people coming to my site to listen to my podcast from her site because I put my site on her directory. A directory is another way to get people to come to your podcast. So I'm answering a lot about podcasts because there were quite a few questions on that, and I wanted to make sure that I give information. Okay, so now let's go to number 3, content that attracts customers. So you want to create purposeful content, or you want to guest blog. Well, guest blogging is somewhat similar to being a guest on a podcast. I'm going to explain that. Before you can do anything, you need to have interesting content. If people think you're boring on Facebook by what you post just posting, they're not going to want to read your blog. They're not going to want to watch your videos or listen to your podcast. You have to be somewhat personable on your social media so that people can go to your platform to dive deeper into the topic that you want to be known for, or the topic of interest that is to you. Okay. Now, it cannot be interesting just to you. I have some amazing blogs that I love. Crickets, nobody liked them. It didn't resonate with people. So I could not continue to write on that. I know one of my podcast episodes just took off. It was titled, I'm not angry, I'm ambitious. And I talked about the angry Black woman syndrome. That resonated with a lot of people. A lot of people don't like being called angry Black woman. So my friend Donna and I, we talked about it in detail. But it would not have resonated if we wrote about it in a written blog. So you also have to know which topics belong on which platforms. My topic is journaling, so I'm going to write about journaling because people who are into journaling are going to want to read that. Now, I can use live streaming to talk more about it, but they're going to want to read because they want that example. Okay, so you have to know which topics are the best way for people to consume that information. If you have questions, please go ahead and post them because I do want to answer them. I may finish my thought, but I will answer them. Okay, now the way to create purposeful content is to write content that addresses the needs of your customers, their pain points, their dreams, their desires, and to use their language. So let's start with needs. I write what I want on Facebook. I will say, I am looking for. That's a need. That is a need. If someone was smart, they would come to me and say, hey, check out my blog post, or check out my podcast, or watch this video blog that I did. They would be addressing my need. So if you were seeing, and I do it all the time. That's how I got the interview with the introvert entrepreneur. She posted about journaling, and I commented, hey, I teach journaling. And we got to chatting in Messenger, and I ended up being a guest all within 2 hours. That happened. We recorded like 2 days later after we decided on a time and a day that worked for both of us. And that happened on Tuesday. By Friday, the podcast episode was out. You look for people's needs because they are writing it on social media. She wrote that she had this, she wanted to get back into journaling, but it was something that just was hard for her. I commented, I addressed her need. And so I was able to get that to be on her podcast. That has helped me get other people into my world of journaling. You want to address needs. The next thing I mentioned was to their pain points. When people consistently complain about something and it's related to what you do, That's your client. That's you, and they're telling you what their pain point is, and you need to figure out how to create a solution for that pain point. If someone consistently says, I don't know how to do my makeup, you may want to create a video to show them how to do makeup in 5 minutes with not a lot, and then give them the link. They're telling you what their pain is. They are waiting on someone to give them the solution to that pain. The next one I said is to address people's dreams and desires. If people say, I wish, I hope, I want, they're telling you what they want. And if you already have that, send them that link. Hey girl, I can help you out. Just go ahead and watch this, read this, listen to this. You don't want to sell them immediately. You're using your content to show them that, hey, I am the solution to your problem. You want to give them that. And what was the last thing I said? Their language. You want to use their language. I use big SAT words. My audience does not respond to big SAT words. So you have to listen. Now, when you listen, use those exact same words. I used mental detox for a whole year. Did not resonate with people. I started using stress, peace, and journaling. Engagement jumped. People are buying my journals. I use words that they can relate to because I'm using their language. You have to get over yourself because those big, pretty, fabulous words that you created that makes you stand out, your audience does not care because it does not matter to them because they don't know what it means. You have to use words that they know so that they say, oh, Renetta is a solution to my problem because she's speaking directly to me. So you have to get out of your ego and change the language that you are using when you are writing, when you are speaking, when you are doing your podcast. Now, my podcast is very relatable. I'm speaking as if I'm speaking to my girlfriends. And I do that on purpose because when you listen to my podcast, I want you to feel that I am speaking to you as a friend. I changed the way I write on my blog to more conversational so that you feel that I'm sharing with you and not telling you what to do. In audio, I laugh, I move my hands, I'm me. Because if you see me on the streets of Houston, I am the same way you see me in the video and you see me on the street. So I am presenting something that you can relate and resonate to, okay? So what you see written, what you hear, what you see, it's going to be the same person in person. That's what you want. I don't know what to do about the audio. I really don't. You may have to catch the replay. Okay. Okay, so that means watch what they put on social media so you know the language that they will relate to. Use that language in your content. And it should be just enough to address and solve their need without going into detail. Some people like to over-explain. I am that person who likes to over-explain. You don't want to over-explain. You want to explain where they understand and leave it. You do not want to explain what you just explained. You explained until they understand and leave it. You don't need to oversell. When you oversell, they get turned off. I'm speaking from experience. A lot of what I'm sharing is from experience, okay? Want to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay. Once you are known for creating phenomenal content, then you can use other types of blogging. So if you start with written word, then you can move to live stream. Once people know you there, then you can get them to move to another platform. If you're starting all three at the same time, it's going to confuse people. They don't know where to start. You have to help them start somewhere, so you have to choose that platform first. Use it for a while, at least 3 months before you add another platform. You don't want to launch a blog and a podcast at the same time. That's too much for you to also handle. You have to think about that. Okay? Not everyone accepts unsolicited guest posts. So we're now to guest posting. If you want to guest post on someone's blog, you need to first see if they accept it. Most times they will have a page on their blog and say, this is how you submit guest posts. If they do not have one, then they may not take unsolicited guest posts. They may choose their guest writers. You can pitch them. They may not respond. They may turn you down, but you can pitch them. But if they do not have it posted that they accept guest posts, then they probably don't accept guest posts. Those who accept it, they will say so. Also, one thing that I want you to understand is some people are very protective of their audience. So if they research you, if they look you up and they feel your content is subpar for their audience, you may not get to guest post on there. You may not get to be a guest on their blog, podcast. You may not get to do live streaming with them. So you need to make sure that your content is of quality, because no one wants to bring on a guest and they have subpar quality that they're now giving to their audience. That's one thing you have to think about. And also, one tip I was given by someone when I started blogging, you want to give better quality when you guest blog than you do on your own. So if you're already giving high quality to your audience, you're going to 10 times that on someone else's. Why? First impressions. First impressions. If this is the first time these people are ever seeing you on someone else's platform, you want to knock it out of the park by giving the absolute best piece of content you can write on that topic. That's most important. That's what you want to do. Okay. If you have a book coming out, or if you're launching something, you can do a where you reach out to a lot of bloggers and you have that information on a lot of blogs. Now, here's the caveat to that. You do not have the same piece of content on every single one of those blogs. If you've reached out to 20 blogs and 15 say yes, that's 15 pieces of content you will need to create. Google does not like the exact same piece of content on multiple platforms. They will ding you. They will ding that site, and that's not good. So you have to change words within that piece of content. So you can have one piece of content and you can just change the words around 15 different times. That works because Google is run by bots. So that will still pass the SEO test. Here's the other caveat. Some of those bloggers may charge you. They may charge you because they have a large audience, they have an engaged audience, or they have an audience that will purchase. If that's the case, they are going to charge you because they will not want to give you free access to an audience that's ready and willing and able to buy. Okay, so you may want to have a budget if you reach out to bloggers who have a large platform. One thing I do want to mention is I said that some bloggers will charge you. Don't feel surprised or offended if they reply back with, here's my fee. I do that. If someone reaches out to me, I may not have the largest audience, but I have an audience that's engaged and I have an audience that will buy. And I will not give you free access to the audience that I've spent years building. Literally years building. I will not give free access to that audience. You will have to pay for access to that audience. Okay, so these tips, there's so much more to blogging, but these tips are a great way to help you get started. If you want to learn more about how to take what I just shared here and to really understand how to take that content and to create influence for your brand, for your business, I really highly suggest that you come to the Houston African American Bloggers Association blog bootcamp on August 5th. If you want to know more information, go to the Houston African American Bloggers Association Facebook page, website, or Instagram page and get the information. Everything I shared here is stuff that you need to know before you come to the boot camp. Even if you haven't started blogging yet, you need to have answers to what I've shared with you, and then we will help you take all of that, put it together so you have the content, and then you can put it out there to the world and you can start creating the influence that you desire. Now, are there any questions? Because I don't want to keep people over an hour. So I say I have about 4 minutes left, but are there any questions? Because I'm also on Instagram. I know some people said they couldn't hear me on Instagram, so you may have to watch the replay. It will be up for 24 hours. But on Facebook, are there any questions? I hope that I did answer everyone's questions. Okay, I'm going through, making sure. Okay. One thing I do want to say, when you are launching your blog, remember your blog can be written, it can be video, it can be audio. You do want to have an audience before you launch. I did not have an audience before I launched Women Are Game Changers. I had an audience before I launched Praying for Purpose. That was my venting blog. That was my venting blog. The blog that I have now on my name, I had an audience because I built that up first. My podcast had an audience because I built that up first. So you want to have built up some people who will listen. Oh, you're welcome. You want to have built up people who will read your stuff, who will share your stuff. More important than readers and listeners when you start are people who are willing to share your stuff. If you go to my Twitter feed and you go to my Facebook, I'm sharing content that's not mine, but it is members of the Houston African American Bloggers Association. So I know I have an engaged audience who will read, who will watch videos, who will listen, because they consume all 3 types of blogs. I'm going to share content from my members on my platforms. So I'm one of their 10. If you're a friend of mine and you have content, I'm going to share your content. So I am one of your 10 people. You want to have someone who's willing and not going to say, oh, you need to give me $50 to share on Twitter. If I love what you do and you're in my circle, I'm going to share. So that's what you need to do, is get your 10 people who will support you no matter what you do. Yes, Tina, I know you share a lot of people's stuff. So Tina is in a lot of people's group of 10. I'm in a lot of people's group of 10. So you want to have your group of 10. Now, for my podcast, what surprised me more than anything is that a lot of my listeners are men. That's not even the audience I was going for, but they share. They share more than the women do on my podcast, and they tell other people how much they like it. Like in some of the podcast groups, people are like, what are your favorite podcasts? And I'm going through the thread, seeing if I can find new podcasts to listen to, and they will comment, I like A Toast to Truth. Okay? So in that case, I'm like, whoa, people are listening. That's how I keep getting these listeners, because they're sharing without me. If you're on Instagram, nice speaking with you. I have about 13 seconds left, so you will be cut out in about 10 seconds. If you are on Facebook, I'll stay on and continue to answer your questions. Okay, sorry, I was also on Instagram Live. But yes, so be a 10. Exactly. Hey, that's the slogan we need to put out there, Brandy. Be a 10. Be a 10 for your group. But where do I hear podcasts? Now, I'm on Android. So I don't do the whole iTunes. I actually like going to people's actual blogs and listening on their blogs to their podcast. I'm probably one of the few. Some people like going to iTunes. Some people like going to Google Play. Some people like going to SoundCloud or Libsyn, Podbean, Stitcher. I'm on as many platforms as I could technically, legally be on without having to pay, because I'm only paying Libsyn. But people are on, Team Apple or whatever, they're listening on iTunes. Android, there's apps for that. I don't listen to podcasts on apps. I listen to podcasts on people's actual blogs, but that's my personal choice. Other people listen to some of the places I listed: iTunes, Libsyn, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Play. They listen to those. They listen at those places. Okay. Any other questions? I'll type Libsyn. It's very, Libsyn. I don't know why they spelled it that way, but that's the way. So when you have a podcast, you have to host it on something. Libsyn, SoundCloud, and a few other places are the hosting. Everyone else are like through the RSS feed. Okay, you're welcome. Everything else is through the RSS feed. So Libsyn is one of the major players as far as hosting your podcast. I went with them. I like them more than SoundCloud. I thought the rates were better. You get better storage use, and I just prefer them. And I also want a ticket through them this year to go to Podcast Movement this August in California. I've never been to California, so I'm like, hey, I got a $500 ticket for free. I'm going. But Libsyn is one of the bigger hosting companies, and good quality, no problems, great customer service. I'm not getting paid by them, but I just like them as a hosting for my podcast. And then they also let you can embed your podcast directly onto your blog if you have a written blog. So when people go to my blog, they don't have to click something and then go to another page. Now at the bottom, I have links for all the other pages: iTunes, Stitcher, all those places. But if they just want to listen to my podcast episode, I can embed from Libsyn directly onto my blog, and they can listen from there. So all the technical part is done. They give you a code and you post it. That's why I like them. Very easy, very simple. Any other questions? I don't have to go teach in the morning, so I am not in a rush. If you have questions, if you're typing in questions, I'm not in a rush to get off and start getting ready for bed, because I do get ready for bed kind of early. Okay. Any other questions? I'll stay on a couple more seconds for those of you who are still typing in questions. If you came in late, catch the replay. It was a lot of information. I try not to overload, but blogging is such a very broad topic that I tried to address your questions directly with information that was helpful for those of you who had posted questions prior to this. Okay, you're welcome, Tina. Okay, if there aren't any more questions live, I'm going to go ahead and close out. But if you do have questions, you can post them later and I'll get to them and I'll answer them. All right, thank you guys for watching. I really hope you learned something that I somewhat made blogging a little bit easier because it can be overwhelming. If you want to know more information, please come to the blog bootcamp. We will be there to answer questions, great sessions by amazing influencers, and, you know, be able to use your blog to attract your clients and your customers. So if that's all, I will say good night, and I will see you all in the group.